I want to remind everyone we're talking with Brian Derdowski of Public Interest Associates. Go to his website, publicinterestassociates.org, and you'll learn an awful lot more. And we're going to spend the rest of the show, Brian, talking about solutions.
There you go.
But the solution is to the melting economy. And so let's go to the first one. Sustainable regionalism. You've kind of hinted on this.
Yes.
What do you mean?
Well, it means that the idea that you're going to ship an apple 8,000 miles across the ocean is probably not going to happen. That's not going to be rational anymore to do that. And so you'll be looking for, because freight will be incredibly expensive.
Even on rail?
Even on rail. It's going to be very expensive to move things around. Secondly, you're not going to be able to finance the kind of trade deficits that have allowed us to bring in things from all over the world. And so that means we're going to have to have a greater reliance on our own productive capability and the productivity of Canada and Mexico and our immediate neighbors.
But with so much of the world's population living in poverty right now, and we're talking extreme poverty, roughly almost half of the world's population lives on less than $2 a day.
Yeah.
That being the case, isn't that a source of labor?
It's a source of labor that should be applied toward their own lifestyles. I mean, it's pretty arrogant to think that we should take people that live in China and have them make our toys for us.
But that's what we do.
I know. In fact, they should be working on their they should be working on their own economy. There's no reason why.
But they were building things and selling them to other people. It just happened that was almost all of the United States. But China also is a huge trading partner of the European Union, too.
The perversity of the world economy as it's currently constructed is that you go to the poorest parts of the world and you take the labor that's a valuable thing, and you take the natural resources, and you take them out of the country to make things for rich countries. That's a perversity. What should happen is that those people should be working in their backyards. They should be taking those natural resources and using it there in their backyards. And they should be, and that when they make a profit, when one generation sacrifices and saves, that saving should be spent in that country. It shouldn't be shipped off in the form of dollars or something.
Got to be devil's advocate here, because one thing that developing countries don't have is capital.
Yeah.
And if they are paid to do things, that provides them capital. Even microcredit, which is phenomenal in what it does for individuals, and it's definitely is a longer scale, longer term fix, but that's providing capital from another source.
The original concept of capitalism, as expressed by Adam Smith in his Wealth of Nations, was that capital was the savings from the difference between consumption and production, and that the assumption was that that capital would be reinvested in that same market. What's happened in the last some 30 years in particular, it's gone on for some time, but especially in the last 20 to 30 years, is that the capital, the blood, sweat, and toil of the population, the sacrifice in one economy, created capital that was not reinvested to improve the lives of the next generation. Rather, that capital was pulled off, put into an institution, and perhaps invested somewhere else, so that money flew around the world, and the community that made that money, the community that made that capital, never got the benefit of it, and that's the problem. And that has happened to us. We actually have. So
when bin Laden built a highway in Somalia, he was building infrastructure that they didn't have, and had whatever that had been done over the years with regard to their lack of a government had built the highway instead, then they would be the hero.
Well, what happens is when you have a situation where you can make a fortune simply by moving money around. You know, our economy for years has rewarded the manipulators more than the producers. Well, that's happened in other countries too. And so if I'm a manipulator in Somalia, I am more like, if I'm a smart, aggressive person in Somalia, I'm going to think about ways to manipulate and become rich, as opposed to figuring out a way to get a new water system so that my grandmother doesn't have to walk 5 miles to get water.
Let's go to some more solutions. I think the next solution that you've got is profound changes in consumption.
Yeah.
We're a consumer-based economy. We need to spend money. We need to buy Coca-Cola.
Well, you know, we did. I remember years ago the Coca-Cola bottle was about 6 ounces.
Yes, it was.
It was a bottle, and it was plenty. You know, the fact is that our consumption has not made us happier. And in some ways, our consumption has made us less happy. It's in some way, you know, for example, these big houses. There was a study that I read recently that said that the families, the kids that are raised in big houses are not as well behaved as the kids that are raised in small houses. And that's obviously, it's obvious
Well,
why.
sure, yeah.
They're underfoot. And I mean, if you have a small house, you have to share the same space. You can't send them off to their wing of the house. And therefore, they're more socialized.
Are we willing to make profound changes in our consumption behavior?
We don't have a choice, Stan. It's going to happen in spite of us.
Let me ask you this. Are we also willing to undertake your next solution, which is aggressive antitrust rules? We've not ever been willing to do that.
Well, you know, that's one of the fears that I have, is that the current meltdown could go two different ways. It could go toward a regional new economy where there's sustainability, where there's less of this globalism that's been hurtful, and it could go the other direction into great concentration, where you could have just a few mega corporations in every country. Every country could take on a mercantile attitude toward the rest of the world. That leads to war. That leads to violence. That leads to concentration and poverty. And it could go that way. And the only thing that's blocking it is approximately 1 million, believe it or not, there was a study that indicated this, 1 million separate nonprofit groups throughout the world that are fighting to oppose that kind of world. And so hopefully they'll pull it off.
Something else you talked about is the development of technology that does real things. So,
Yes. Well, you know,
so you're not talking about vaporware or games. What are you talking about?
Well, you know, part of it is that there's this disconnect between money and wealth and production and utility. And one reason for that is because economists refuse to talk about qualitative values. They assume that $1 is exactly the same as another dollar. And of course, you know and I know that's not true. If I'm a capitalist and I put $100 million into a baseball ballpark, the value to society is going to be quite different than if I put $100 million and I put it into brand new schools, or if I put it into a training institute for, we're going to have to address this issue as to the relative value of goods, and we need to start with the capital markets. Why should I, who made money off of some hedge fund, be able to have be taxed at a capital gains rate, whereas a person who actually bought the original stock that built the company that produced the product, why should he be taxed at the same rate as the guy that speculated as a short seller?
That's a very, very long discussion to have, but I've got to skip over to the last solutions slide, because one of the things you talk about in solutions is taxes on bad things. And so I want to tell the booth, I want you to go ahead and skip on over to the one that says bad things tax on it. We always are ready to tax alcohol and cigarettes, and we tax the heck out of it. But also, though, if you look at the food pyramid, you see that a Milky Way is a bad thing for us, but its cost of goods sold gets the same deduction as that Go Lean bar. Are we willing to do that? And the same thing, the Coca-Cola and the Big Mac and the fries, the cost of goods sold has the same deductibility in our tax system as the Apple and others. Now, certainly there's subsidies in there.
Right.
Bottom line is that, are we going to be facing a bad things tax on Milky Ways and
well, first of all,
Big Macs?
that kind of taxation
we have a minute left.
That's a nanny state sort of attitude.
Yes, it is.
And that's something I don't think we're going to do. The kind of taxation that I'm talking about is where you tax pollution, where you tax natural resources, so that if a company makes this product and it uses less water and less iron ore and less oil, that it pays a less of a tax than someone who makes that same product using
I got to go to this slide, because the last thing that you talked about was we're going to be living in, a lot of us in the same house. Is this what's happening? Are we going to have multi-families?
It's already happening. It's happening probably in your neighborhood.
Is it? Wow. We got through this. I can't believe it. Brian Derdowski, thank you very much. Go to his website, www.publicinterestassociates.org. We'll see you on Public Exposure.